Do you ever have that moment where you wake up and before your feet even hit the floor, your brain whispers this really heavy, insidious little thought?
No, the timeline panic.
Exactly. It's just this voice saying, you should be further along by now.
Yeah.
Why is it that right now, the most connected, educated people are feeling totally left behind?
It's basically a quiet epidemic of perceived inadequacy, and the real tragedy of it is how isolating it feels.
Yeah, it really does.
Like, it makes you feel completely alone in a crowded room. You get convinced that everyone else was handed this, I don't know, this secret manual to life that you somehow missed.
Which is so wild. And our mission in this deep dive is to basically look at a mountain of research, from cognitive neuroscience to business history, to figure out exactly why you feel like you're failing.
Right, because you aren't.
You aren't. We are going to dismantle that feeling entirely.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a complete biological and cultural illusion. I was trying to articulate this earlier. It's like you are running on a treadmill at the gym.
Okay, I can picture that.
You're sweating, your heart is pounding, you are putting in serious work. But then you look to your left, and there is an Olympic sprinter just, casually jogging at twice your speed on a 10% incline.
Oh, that's the worst feeling.
Right. You are working so incredibly hard, but staring at them makes you feel like your machine is broken, like you aren't even moving.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that visceral reaction, that feeling that you are fundamentally broken, is exactly where we need to start.
Because it feels so real.
It does. But what you're describing isn't a character flaw. It's not a lack of hustle. It is a deeply wired psychological trap.
A trap that we essentially set for ourselves.
Well, sort of. We are running ancient neurological software in a fundamentally unnatural modern environment. You are not behind. You are just comparing timelines that were never designed to match in the first place.
Okay, so if we go back to that ancient software, why is my brain constantly forcing me to look at the treadmill next to me? Why can't I just, run my own race in peace?
Because running your own race in the Pleistocene era meant you got eaten or exiled.
Oh, wow. Literally.
Literally. If we look at the origins of this, back in the 50s, there was this researcher, Leon Festinger, who introduced social comparison theory. And he showed that humans have this survival-level drive to evaluate their social standing.
So it's hardwired into us.
Completely hardwired. In an ancient tribe, you were constantly evaluating your hunting skills or your social capital against a really tiny static group, maybe 50 people.
Right, your immediate village.
Exactly. Because if you fell to the bottom of that specific hierarchy, you literally lost access to food and protection. You died.
Okay, let's unpack this, though.
Yeah.
Because we all know intellectually that social media isn't a tribe.
Right.
Like, we've heard a million times that the internet is just a highlight reel.
Oh, absolutely.
We know people use filters. We know they rent the sports cars for the photos. So what I don't get is why my brain still processes, like, a former coworker's vacation photo as a genuine threat to my own existence.
That is where the neuroscience gets so fascinating. Because your prefrontal cortex, the logical reasoning part of your brain, it knows the photo is curated.
It knows the car is rented.
Right. But your amygdala, the primitive threat detection center, it does not understand the concept of digital curation. It just sees status.
Oh, man. So it just reacts.
Yeah. When you spend 2.5 hours a day scrolling through the absolute peak triumphant moments of thousands of global competitors, your amygdala registers a catastrophic drop in your social ranking.
Because I'm comparing my regular Tuesday to someone's life peak.
Exactly. You are exposing your primitive brain to 10,000 tribal leaders a day. It triggers the exact same stress response as if you were suddenly the weakest link in your ancestral village.
But hold on, isn't comparison sometimes necessary? I mean, competition drives innovation, doesn't it?
It definitely can, yeah.
Like, if I never compared myself to anyone, I'd probably just sit on the couch eating chips all day. Doesn't it sometimes motivate us to actually do better?
It does, but we have to distinguish between how we compare ourselves. Psychologists usually divide this into downward and upward comparison.
Okay, so downward is what? Looking at people doing worse than you.
Right. Downward comparison is often just a defensive reflex to soothe our own anxiety, like, at least I'm not that guy, which isn't particularly healthy for actual growth.
Makes sense.
and upward. Upward comparison is looking at people outperforming us. And you're right, that can trigger what is called benign envy.
Benign envy. I've never heard that term.
Yeah, it's actually a really useful emotion. It's when you feel that sting of envy, but your brain converts it into fuel.
Oh, like if they can do it, I can do it.
Precisely. You think the path exists and I can learn from their process, but the problem is modern humans suffer from severe positional bias.
Meaning what? We look at the wrong people.
Exactly. We don't compare ourselves to slightly better, relatable peers anymore. We compare our baseline, unedited reality to absolute paragons of perfection.
Right. I'm not comparing my career trajectory to my college roommates. I'm comparing it to, like, a 22-year-old billionaire tech founder.
Right. Which is a mathematically impossible standard. It completely paralyzes us instead of motivating us.
And setting those impossible standards has real collateral damage. I was looking at the clinical data on this, and up to 70% of 30-somethings experienced a severe quarter-life crisis in their 20s.
70%. That is a massive majority.
Yes. So if you are listening to this right now and feeling completely lost, you are literally in the vast majority. You are normal.
You are so normal. And researchers actually break this crisis down into two distinct types.
Oh, so the locked in and locked out, right?
Yes. The locked-in crisis is that suffocating realization that you climbed a ladder leaning against the wrong wall.
Like you're trapped in a career or a city that just doesn't fit who you are.
Exactly. And the other side of that coin is the locked-out crisis.
That's the frantic one.
Right. That's the exhausting feeling of desperately wanting to hit a societal milestone, the promotion, the marriage, the mortgage, and feeling like the doors just keep slamming in your face.
Despite doing everything right. And while we're dealing with all of that internal chaos, we feel totally forced to pretend we aren't.
The whole fake it till you make it trap.
Yeah. People always say, oh, you're just comparing your behind-the-scenes blooper reel to someone else's movie trailer.
Yeah.
Like comparing chapter 10 of your life to chapter 200 of theirs.
Which is true, but
honestly, it feels way too passive. It's more like impression management is running like a dozen hidden background apps on your phone.
oh, that's a brilliant analogy.
Right. You're constantly trying to project success and stability at all times.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize those background apps are draining your battery to zero.
Leaving you with literally no energy to actually fix your life.
Exactly.
That background app analogy is incredibly accurate from a cognitive load perspective. Psychologists refer to this exhausting performance as impression management.
Impression management.
Yeah, it's the intense ongoing effort we put into controlling how other people perceive us, and the biological cost is incredibly steep.
It physically hurts us.
It really does. Studies show that maintaining intense impression management actively increases your allostatic load, which is the physical wear and tear on your body from chronic stress.
So the people who look the most put together
Are very often the most depleted.
Wow.
There's this profound irony in the data. The more energy a person spends signaling to the internet that they have it all figured out, the lower their reported life satisfaction actually is.
They are draining their cognitive battery to maintain a facade.
Leaving absolutely zero bandwidth for self-discovery.
Wait, so if projecting this perfection is physically exhausting us, why are we doing it? I feel like the corporate world has created this total obsession with extreme early achievement.
Without a doubt.
It's that whole 30 under 30 complex. If you haven't disrupted an industry by your 25th birthday, you are completely washed up.
There's a researcher named Rich Karlgaard who has looked into this extensively. He calls it the early achievement conveyor belt.
The conveyor belt.
Yeah, we push affluent kids from elite preschools into AP classes, aiming for Ivy League admission, straight into a high-paying tech job by age 22.
Right, it's a very specific pipeline.
But Karlgaard points out a fatal flaw in this entire system. It exclusively rewards what he calls rapid algorithmic giftedness.
Algorithmic giftedness, meaning what exactly?
Raw processing speed. The ability to memorize information quickly, focus intensely under artificial pressure, and score high on standardized tests.
Basically being a human computer.
Yes. The conveyor belt measures how fast your brain can compute, completely ignoring the myriad of other cognitive gifts that physically require decades of life experience to develop.
I actually have to bring up Karlgaard's personal story here because it is the ultimate reality check.
Oh, his Stanford story. Yes,
No.
sure that.
Right, so he graduated from Stanford, so you'd think he is the absolute poster child for this conveyor belt. But at age 25, he is working as a night security guard at a trucking yard.
A night guard with a Stanford degree.
Yes, he's walking the perimeter with a flashlight. He looks through the chain link fence and realizes the security guard for the yard next door is a Rottweiler.
Oh, that's just incredible.
His professional equivalent was a literal dog.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Steve Jobs is taking Apple public.
Talk about an upward comparison trap.
Right. If I am 25 and my peer is a Rottweiler, I am panicking. Why shouldn't we panic if we haven't made it early? Like, why does the corporate world prize these 22-year-olds so much if they don't have experience?
Well, the corporate world loves algorithmic speed because it's cheap, it's easily measurable, and to be honest, younger workers are often more willing to burn themselves out.
True.
But the panic ignores fundamental neurobiology. There was a major cognitive study tracking when different brain functions actually peak. And yes, that rapid synaptic processing, the raw speed rewarded by SATs and early career jobs, that peaks in our early 20s.
So the conveyor belt isn't totally wrong about speed.
Right. But your prefrontal cortex, which governs complex decision-making and risk assessment, it doesn't even finish structurally developing until you are 25.
So the expectation that you are supposed to have your entire life perfectly mapped out at 22 is just biologically absurd.
It is completely absurd. Deeper pattern recognition, the ability to read a room, advanced emotional regulation, those cognitive functions don't peak until our late 30s, 40s, and even 50s.
And what about, like, actual wisdom?
Crystallized wisdom. The ability to navigate deep ambiguity and synthesize decades of disparate information, that peaks in our 60s and 70s.
Oh, wow.
We are physically designed by evolution to bloom over multiple decades, not to front-load our entire existence before age 30.
Okay, so if my brain is actually better at making complex decisions and reading the room at 45, why does it feel like stepping off that early conveyor belt is a death sentence?
Because society tells us quitting is failing.
Exactly. Like, quitting anything is viewed as the ultimate personal failure.
But quitting is deeply misunderstood. Here is where it gets really fascinating. Often, quitting is the most highly evolved executive function we possess.
Wait, really? Quitting is evolved?
Yes. Look at the founders of Intel, Bob Noyce, Gordon Moore, and Andy Grove. In the 1980s, their core business was memory chips, but they were bleeding cash, just getting crushed by overseas competition.
Right, the Japanese market was taking over.
Exactly. So they had to make a brutal, deeply unpopular choice. They decided to quit the memory chip business entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. They just walked away from the primary product that built their massive company.
Yes. They quit so they could strategically pivot and dominate the microprocessor market instead, which, as we know, changed the world.
So stepping off the expected path isn't a failure.
Not at all. It requires a tremendous amount of maturity and self-awareness to recognize when a trajectory is no longer serving you, to start, reflect, and change direction.
That makes so much sense. Resting isn't laziness.
No, resting is a strategic pivot.
It totally changes the whole concept of wasting time. If life feels stagnant right now, for anyone listening, maybe you aren't planting a vegetable garden where things pot up in 3 months.
Right, you're doing something bigger.
Maybe you're planting an orchard. You spend years tending the soil, and it looks like absolutely nothing is happening above ground. But underneath, you are growing these massive, deep root systems before you ever produce a single piece of fruit.
That is a beautiful way to phrase it. And that invisible root system is actually what clinical psychologist Dr. Meg Jay calls identity capital.
Identity capital. I love that term.
It is crucial for anyone feeling behind right now. The time you spend working an odd job or navigating a brutal breakup or traveling without a plan, that is not dead time.
It feels like dead time, though.
I know it does. But you are aggressively accumulating identity capital.
How does that actually work, though? Give me a concrete example. Because when you're in the middle of a terrible job, it just feels like you're losing the race.
Think of identity capital as a unique currency. It's the collection of your personal assets, your resilience, your weird niche skills, how you handle a crisis, your developed empathy.
Stuff you can't just learn in a textbook.
You can't buy it and you cannot hack it. Let's look at a classic late bloomer, Vera Wang.
Oh, right. She didn't enter the fashion design industry until she was, what, 40?
Exactly. But look at what she was doing before that. She was a competitive figure skater who failed to make the U.S. Olympic team.
Heartbreaking.
Then she spent 15 years as a journalist and editor at a fashion magazine. Now, if you view life strictly as a conveyor belt, Failing to make the Olympics and then working in publishing for a decade and a half looks like a wildly inefficient path to becoming a designer.
Right. It looks like a total detour.
But if you view it through the lens of accumulating identity capital,
It changes everything.
yes. Figure skating taught her the intimate biomechanics of movement, how fabric behaves under extreme physical stress.
Oh, I never thought of that.
And her years in publishing taught her the brutal realities of the fashion business, high-end styling, and editorial narrative.
So she was building the root system.
Precisely. When she finally pivoted to design at 40, she didn't just have a good eye. She had an unmatched arsenal of identity capital that a 22-year-old recent design grad simply couldn't possess.
So how does a listener actually audit their own identity capital right now? Like, how do they see the roots of their own orchard?
You have to look at the things you currently consider detours or failures. Ask yourself, what weird, highly specific skill did I learn from that terrible boss?
Or like, what kind of emotional resilience did I build during that 6-month period of unemployment?
Exactly. Write those things down. You will quickly realize your quote-unquote lost years were actually an intense, custom-built training ground for the person you are becoming.
That reframing is incredibly powerful. And honestly, the historical data proves timelines are entirely artificial anyway.
They really are.
Like, the average age of a first-time mother has shifted by a full decade since the 1970s. Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook or get on television until she was 50.
50.
Toni Morrison didn't become a true household name until she won the Nobel Prize at 62.
Amazing.
Ray Kroc started the McDonald's franchise system at 52. And there's Kitty Weston Nauer, who is still winning BMX championships at 71.
That is incredible. The timeline is a total myth.
It is a complete cultural construct.
Yeah.
The people who finally break through are the ones who realize that outsourcing their self-worth to an external societal clock is just a guaranteed losing game.
It is a game you cannot win.
So practically speaking, how do we escape the invisible timeline? When it's 11 p.m. and you're just doom scrolling on your phone, feeling that familiar heavy knot of inadequacy in your stomach, how do you actively make that internal shift?
The psychological literature points to redefining your metrics of success. If your definition of success is a C-suite title by 35, simply because that's what your parents valued, you will remain trapped in chronic anxiety.
Because it's not your actual goal.
Right. But if you ruthlessly audit your own values, if your definition of success is having the flexibility to pick your kids up from school, or doing work that doesn't trigger panic attacks, or just cultivating a really deep, loyal group of friends, your timeline instantly resets.
You essentially stop running their race entirely.
Yes. And a massive part of that reset involves a radical acceptance of rest.
Which we are so bad at.
Horrible at it.
Right.
Our culture treats rest as a reward for burning out. We need to view rest not as the opposite of ambition, but as a critical physiological requirement for growth.
Because you can't process all that identity capital if you're exhausted.
Exactly. You cannot make complex decisions if your amygdala is in a constant exhausted state of threat detection.
And maybe we need to rethink how we view our peers, too. I was reading that in individualistic cultures, like ours in the West, upward comparison is almost always a zero-sum game.
If you win, I lose.
Right. It naturally spikes our anxiety. But anthropologists note that in highly collectivistic cultures, upward comparison within an in-group is often viewed as inspirational.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if my neighbor succeeds, it elevates the status of the entire community, which in turn elevates me.
That is a profound cognitive shift, moving from competition to connection. When you see someone succeeding, instead of letting the amygdala trigger a threat response, you consciously engage your prefrontal cortex.
You kind of override the panic.
Yes. You ask, what specific strategy did they use that I can adapt for my own life? You turn their success from a mirror reflecting your perceived flaws into a window showing you new possibilities.
And practically, the experts say we need to focus heavily on micro wins.
Yes, the tiny steps.
We get so blinded by the huge announcements online, the engagement ring, the massive promotion, the new house, that we ignore the actual mechanics of human growth.
Which is always incremental.
A micro win is noticing that you reacted calmly to an abrasive email that would have sent you into a total tailspin a year ago.
Oh, that's a huge win.
It is. It's finally setting a firm boundary with a toxic family member. It's literally just closing the social media app and choosing to go to sleep.
Those quiet, completely unpostable victories are the actual building blocks of a meaningful life.
Because true growth rarely announces itself with a megaphone.
It really doesn't. It is silent, and it's completely invisible to the timeline. But if you were introduced to the version of yourself from 5 years ago to today, you would be astounded by the stranger standing in front of you.
You wouldn't even recognize him.
No, you have evolved in ways you can't even perceive on a daily basis.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to say something directly to you, the listener, wherever you are right now. Take a deep breath.
Just let your shoulders drop.
You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where your unique choices, your painful detours, and your deeply earned identity capital have brought you.
Your own pace.
You are in your own chapter, in your own book, and the pacing is exactly as it needs to be.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative question to sit with long after this ends.
Oh, what's that?
What if this invisible timeline you've been torturing yourself with is actually just a psychological safety net?
A safety net. How so?
We cling to the idea of a standard track because following a pre-written script is infinitely easier than facing the terrifying reality of your own agency.
Oh, wow.
Because once you fully accept that there is no track and there is no race, you realize you have the absolute freedom to change your life completely at any age.
Which is a huge responsibility.
It is, and that kind of absolute freedom is both terrifying and profoundly beautiful.